Finding an activity to do with your child that challenges and pushes you both to be better, that builds character, and is something you can learn together is a fantastic thing.
At Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, we thrive on positive feedback from our students, so you can just imagine how happy we were to hear from Jessica and her daughters as they gave their thoughts about our classes.
Classes are always fun, and I always learn something new.
Fun and learning, all while getting out and getting active. That's one of our goals, and according to these amazing ladies, we're doing our job and doing it well.
I see the excitement and the joy that they have to go to class to learn and improve.
Contact us today to find out what everyone is talking about. Our family can't wait to meet your family.
Okami Kai is my favorite place to be.
Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness. Check us out at okamikai.com.
Everything is my favorite thing to do in class.
Welcome to the Okami Kai Chronicles, a podcast devoted to not only the students at Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, but also to the fans of our school and maybe even other martial artists who are curious about what's happening in our small area of the martial arts world. I'm Scott Campsell, and I'm the chief instructor at Okami Kai, which is located in Uxbridge, Ontario, Canada. You know that moment you're drilling basics for the 5th time this week, or you're doing that warm-up that you've done over and over again? Or maybe you're only 10 minutes into your workout, or you're staring at a simple task you've done 100 times, and suddenly your hand reaches for your phone. Today we're diving into a force that affects every martial artist, and really every human being living in today's world: discomfort, distraction, and the very personal, very persuasive inner voice that wants you to stop. Whether it shows up in your training, your daily chores, or when you're trying to stay focused in a world filled with dopamine hits, we all know that voice. And so today, we learn how to deal with it. There's a book I've been exposed to recently called 4,000 Weeks, and it's by Oliver Burkeman. And in chapter 6, he starts talking about a gentleman named Steve Young, who in 1969 wanted to join a monastery in Japan. And originally they weren't going to let him stay, but over time they gave him a bunch of mundane tasks he had to accomplish around the monastery. And eventually they saw fit to let him actually go through the procedure to become a monk. And one of the things he had to do was to embark on a 100-day retreat. And during the retreat, he would stay in an unheated cabin, and 3 times a day he had to go through a purification ritual that involved him pouring cold water over his head. And so in this book, Burkeman starts talking about how Young ended up realizing that although the natural reaction would have been to shy away from the pain and the cold and the discomfort, apparently what Young realized was that it was better to embrace it. And when he accepted it, and I don't know if he looked forward to it, but eventually when he started realizing that this was happening and he was living more in the now moment, that's when it became more bearable to douse himself with the cold water. And then he was able to transfer that kind of mindset back into his mundane chores when he went back to the monastery. And it was easier to stay focused on, I guess, mopping and whatever he had to do because he accepted it and he was being in the moment. And I'm reminded of a quote by Carlos Santana, and it's, "If you're going to sweep the floor, sweep it better than anybody in town." And I think he ends up talking about guitar, and he says, if you're going to play the guitar, then really, really get into it or whatever. But I always remember the first part. If you're going to sweep the floor better than anybody in town. And I try to transfer that over to other things. If I'm going to teach martial arts, I want to do it better than anybody. And so as much as I know a lot of my colleagues will focus on kata and bunkai or applications and how to make their techniques better, for me, I always search for, how do I become a better teacher? How do I present the information better? Because quite honestly, the techniques are good and they're solid, and I know they're there to defend myself, but I don't necessarily have to defend myself on a regular basis, thank goodness. I do, however, have to teach every day. So I am constantly looking at how am I going to do things better. And so when I go back and I take this theory that Young had about embracing the situation, well, I've been able to take that and I've been able to apply it to other things in my life. And in the same chapter, Burkeman starts calling this idea the intimate interrupter. And it's not a villain from a movie, or although maybe it sounds like that, but it's sort of that inner voice, that one that says, you could be more comfortable if you do something else. Just take a break. You don't need to finish this right now. And so it's not like you want to quit. So like, for example, if you're doing martial arts and you're training really hard, it's not necessarily that you don't want to work on those basics or those patterns. There's times where I will leave students alone. I'll say, okay, just practice this. And then I'll turn around and I'll realize they're not practicing at that moment. And that's when I know that intimate interrupter is sort of hitting their head. Sometimes this happens to me in the gym too. I'll be working out and I'll get distracted, or I will find that the first few reps in a set are easy going, but the next two are going to be hard. And there's this little voice that's saying, okay, I think you've worked hard enough. And they've actually proven that people will do better with personal training in a gym because they have somebody that's watching them. And they may not even have that person coaching them at that moment, but just the fact that somebody's watching them is enough to push them and they can stay a little bit more focused. I've noticed this even with cell phones. The phone's got to be the most accessible form of distraction in human history. And it's engineered to reward your brain every time you check it, especially when you're feeling bored, tired, or anxious. So for me, I don't necessarily check my phone sometimes because I'm lazy. I'm checking it because I'm uncomfortable. And so it doesn't matter how many times I could teach students and say, hey, don't give up. Don't take the easy way out. And yet here I am, if I'm doing book work or waiting for somebody, I end up running to my phone and I sort of lie to myself and go, oh, I got to check my email, or I haven't seen that in a while, or maybe I got to check out the first social media site that pops up or whatever. It's a break. But just think how many minutes accumulate if you keep on taking a break over and over again. I started researching this a little bit more and I found a little simple drill that might be worth trying. And basically it works sort of like this, that you set a 10-minute timer and you choose something repetitive like punches or writing or stretching or cleaning or whatever. And when boredom shows up, you make a note of it and you realize that that's your training partner. And so now you got to compete against that. And so you stay with it and you finish those 10 minutes. No phone, no shortcuts, no breaks. And so the theory is that if you keep this going, that you'll notice something change. And I'm not necessarily convinced that I'm going to throw cold water over my head and I'm going to be able to get through that as easily. Although, I don't know. I've done the cold shower thing. And originally when I first started, that was a lot harder. I haven't done the sit in buckets of ice water yet. I haven't pulled that off yet. I might. But for now, let's stick with the cleaning. The theory is that if you can do this, if you can focus for even 10 minutes, that eventually that strength will improve just like it would be anything else. And I have thought about this since I've been exposed to this now. I have thought about this in the gym. And I have noticed myself getting stronger and being able to lift more weight just when I accept the fact that those last 2 reps are going to be a little bit more arduous. So we might be onto something here. That intimate interrupter, it's always going to be there. It doesn't go away. But I believe that with some practice, we could stop mistaking it for the truth. Because if you can start recognizing, there you go. No, I'm not quitting. The repetition, the boredom, the burn, the boredom again. That's not the problem. That's the path. We used to have t-shirts that said, don't quit. And I highlighted the D-O and don't and the I-T and quit. So then that way, if you read it, it would say don't quit. And or you read it, it would say do it. It's sort of hard to describe in an audio podcast. But basically, the theory behind the shirt was some type of catchphrase that would basically make people realize that they didn't need to stop, that they could keep on persevering and they could go through it. And that internal voice, that intimate interrupter, it's always going to show up. Mine does, yours does. It's just part of being human. And so if this resonates with you and you think this has helped you, please pass it on to somebody else. I think this goes past the mats. It's one of those martial arts lessons that I love that go outside of the dojo. And we all fight that voice, but the best part, we don't fight it alone. And just like the other catchphrase that we use now, we're stronger together. This has been a Capsule Broadcasting production. Now put your phone down and go train. Well, unless you're sharing this episode with somebody, then carry on.